Good morning, everyone. I hope you're having a great Tuesday. And today, my testimony is about chaos and order. And I want to testify about a time in my life when the Lord brought order out of a season of a lot of chaos going on. He's done it several times in my life, but this is the one that comes to my mind today that I'd like to testify about. So, when I was 14 years old, my father had become critically ill, and he was near death, and he needed to take a year off of work, a sabbatical year, to recuperate and to recover. Well, we had just moved. My sister and my father and I had just moved from Las Cruces, New Mexico, to a little town called Artesia. And we had only been in Artesia for a couple of months, and there had been a lot of things that had occurred while we were there. And my father became very, very ill. Now, when he got really sick, I was actually visiting my aunt and uncle, and it was during the summer. And he ended up in the hospital in Lubbock, Texas, and he was near death. And it was a very critical and very chaotic situation. The whole family had basically rushed to Lubbock to see him before he passed away. I had gone with my aunt and uncle and my grandmother, and I'm going to share about what happened with his whole health and situation at another time, because I really think that's a time when I'm going to try to get my sister on here and interview her and let her help share that testimony. It's pretty incredible, and I will give you a hint. It does include a resurrection from the dead. But not today. Today's more about the aftermath of everything that had occurred. So my dad had survived, and he had to take this year off. It's called a sabbatical. He took a year off from work so that he could recuperate from everything that had occurred. And we had to make a really quick decision about what was going to happen with me. Now, my oldest sister had an apartment in Las Cruces, and she was going to the university there. So she had a place to live. But we had to, because my dad was going to take a year off of work, we had to go and pack up the entire household in like 3 days. We had 3 days to pack up the entire household and basically send everybody 3 different directions. My sister was going to take her stuff to Las Cruces. We had decided that I was going to live with my aunt and uncle for a year. And my dad, the rest of the household, we had to pack and put in storage, and he was going to be going out to West Texas and staying with his brother and sister-in-law on their farm so that he would be near his doctors in El Paso. So in this 3-day period, it was very chaotic. There was so much going on, and a lot of uncertainty. You know, when you're 14 years old and your whole world has basically been uprooted. Now, I had been uprooted already because I had moved the few months prior from all of my friends that I had developed over several years in Las Cruces to this new community, and was facing a new school and new people. I didn't know anybody in town, and then packing everything up and being uprooted once again and moving to this little town where my aunt and uncle lived. And when I say little, I mean like there were 18 people in my freshman class in high school. And I had been used to really large schools with a lot of programming going on. So what occurred was this very chaotic situation. And in a week's time, I had almost lost my father. I packed up everything that we owned, and I had moved to a new community and I had moved in with my aunt and uncle. The goodness of the Lord in all of that is that the provision he made for me in that season of my life involved my aunt and uncle. Now, they had one son who had passed away when he was 5 years old. He died from a brain tumor, and they didn't have any other children. And so when I moved in with them, the Lord knew exactly what I needed, and he knew exactly what they needed. I kind of became like their kid. They became my parents in that season, and I needed a mother. I had been without a mother for a few years, and I desperately needed that influence in my life on a daily basis. My aunt was a retired home economics teacher, so it was perfect. She taught me cooking and cleaning and sewing and, all those things you learn with home economics. And my uncle, who was a rancher, taught me how to drive a pickup and deal with cattle. And I absolutely loved the year that I had with them. It was a shock to my system. It was a shock to go from the culture of a large school environment to this little teeny tiny school where everybody knew everybody, and it's just a very, very different experience. But I needed them, and they needed me, and the Lord knew exactly what we all needed. And I wouldn't trade that year that I had with my aunt and uncle for anything. I learned so much, and I was so blessed. It was one of the greatest seasons of my life when I look back on it. And I realized how the Lord not only took that year and brought order out of this extremely chaotic time in my life, but he also used it as a year of preparation for the future. Because you see, after that, my dad took this church in El Paso, and I moved to El Paso with him and started as a sophomore in high school there. And my sister was living in Las Cruces. She would come home on the weekends the first year I was there, and then the following year she married and moved to Germany. And I needed the skill sets that my aunt had started teaching me. I needed that season of preparation because when I moved to El Paso, it was Dad and I. And all of a sudden, when you start becoming the person who's doing the grocery shopping and the cooking and the house cleaning, and I'm not saying I was great at it. Bless his heart, he survived it all with me. But you step into a responsibility that most teenagers in high school don't walk in. Most people in high school don't have their name on their daddy's checking account, but that's exactly what I stepped into. But the Lord knew. He knew what I needed at the moment, and he knew what I needed for preparation for the next season. And so it's just a small testimony. But I think that the Lord would like to bless somebody today. There's one person I think in particular that's going to hear this. And the Lord wants you to know that even though you've been in a season of chaos and where things have been out of control and maybe out of your control, that he is able to bring order out of it. He speaks order into chaos. He hovered over creation and he spoke order into it. He set everything in its place, and he can do that in your life too. And he can take that season and make it a season of blessing, and he can use it to prepare you for your future, to prepare you for the next thing that you're going to walk into. And the Lord loves us. He absolutely loves us. And he absolutely can take what we think is totally out of control and turn it into something very beautiful that you will treasure for the rest of your life. Because I treasure that year with my aunt and uncle. And so that's my testimony for today, for Testimony Tuesday. It's not a long one, but I want you to be encouraged. The Lord takes chaos and He speaks order into it. He sets things into order in our lives. And He wants to bring you into a place where you can be blessed and where you can be a blessing. So be encouraged. Have a wonderful day. Bye.